would like to excuse Mayor Muckle. He will be back at the next meeting. Approval of the agenda. Are there any concerns? It's a very short agenda.
That's a good agenda.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Trustee Sorelli, second that. Okay. We could be out of here in record time. All right. Report, questions, and all in favor? Why don't we start to my right?
Good.
Esteemed colleague, Trustee Pennington.
Well, my first line of business tonight is to wish Deb a happy birthday.
Today?
Yeah.
All right.
She's 21.
I
You got to
can't
start
sing,
singing,
but
Sandy.
We got it. Yeah.
We've got the singer.
No, you don't want me
All
singing.
right. Everybody, we got to join. The audience has to join. All right.
No, you don't want me
Happy
singing.
birthday to
You don't
you.
want me singing.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear
Trustee Williams.
Happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
See, Phyllis started a new tradition, so now this is it.
Yes. No, that is true. That is very true.
And I had about as much fun as at the National Night Out, which was last week, sponsored by Boulder County Sheriff's Department, I think, and I thought that was a great event, very well attended and instructional. I didn't know how many Boulder County Sheriff's Department employees, including our own Jim, is trained in bomb disposal. So, not to give anybody any ideas, but he is trained in that. Also, last week, anti-bullying spot that was put together by, I believe, Young Ambassadors. Chris, you might know who else, but it involved several coaches. Chris was one of them. The scouts. I was one of the spokespeople, and our own video guy here did the video part of it, and I thought he did an exceptional job, and I thought Young Ambassadors did an exceptional job in putting a very powerful message together. I didn't go to the film night at the HOA, but I understand it was played there. Did you go, Chris?
I did. We passed by when it was happening, and we saw you on the screen. And it was this
Unfortunately.
huge screen in the park, and there's Sandy.
Well, I think Chris actually missed his calling. He opens the spot, and obviously he should be on air. But anyway, I thought it was a very powerful spot on anti-bullying right before the school year starts. So I suggest to them, as I believe others did, that they submit it to Channel 8 so that it can play on Channel 8, and if anybody else has any ideas how to get that out. And then wanted to raise the issue. We interviewed tonight for the vacancy on OSAC, and of course we had 2 previous interviews, and we have 2 more to come. And we've also put notification out to all of our committee members to see which ones want to re-up their tenures. And I believe in the month of September, we finally have organized a date, Phyllis, correct, in September with the committee chairman and the liaisons to discuss some rough spots and some issues about smoother functioning of the committees, et cetera. And so the question I have is whether or not, particularly given the fact we may have more openings after all the committee members re-up in the next month, if perhaps we should not extend our self-imposed deadline to fill that OSEC spot next board meeting and instead wait till we see how many openings we have in toto and then go about trying to fill them. For one, people who are now applying for the OSAC spot might say, you know, my first preference is ProStack, and if an opening opens up there, they'd be best placed on ProStack. So I just want to throw out to the board the possibility of maybe, I don't see any real time need to fill that OSAC spot immediately, and if anybody does, please speak up, maybe to do it more as a total process rather than as a piecemeal process or a stepped process. I'm going to throw that out there.
And I should say, piggyback on that, OSAC has a meeting this Wednesday with Louisville's Open Space Advisory Committee, and then we're going to have a meeting after separately, and part of the discussion is reappointment. So we might know by
Okay.
Wednesday night,
Well,
where, at least with OSAC, where we sit.
does anybody have I'm just throwing it out there. My personal bias is to do it as an overall process. Does anybody feel one way or the other?
We're planning the reappointments in September, is that right? For committees?
We were talking about doing them at that same meeting on August 22nd.
Oh, were we?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's
But
not,
if we're going to interview people on the 22nd during the work session, how are we going to vote? How is that going to take place?
It'll be during the regular meeting.
I understand
And
that.
By
then
ballot, or
When will we discuss it, though?
typically, yeah, I mean, we've had a meeting in between the interviews, and but we kind of drug this process out, so I didn't want to drag it out any longer. But, I mean, there's no, like Trustee Benjamin said, we don't have to do it on the 22nd.
We've drug it out enough, though, that it's now on top of some other deadlines.
Right.
So my thing is,
do we have?
given that,
But
We
if
have
there's
no
discussion,
idea.
How's this going to take place? I mean, we have several candidates
we'll
for,
figure a logistical
We should do it offline, I think.
method.
that's what I'm saying, but we want to have the interviews until the 22nd,
I
so that's,
understand. I'm saying
So,
we usually
in that
do
case, we would
it
push
as
it
a
one
Because
meeting.
there's no way to meet and discuss. We tend to do an email, I think.
but there's no way to appoint then on the 22nd.
Yeah, that's,
No, yeah.
That's what I'm
Eli's
saying.
point is
That's my
doesn't
point.
work well to do it the same night.
Right, we may
Okay.
need to wait.
All right.
Right, that's the way to do it. I know
That
we
might
raised another
work
2
well
weeks,
with what
but
Sandy's saying, if we know. The only problem with what you're suggesting is that if there's a number of appointments in other committees, it may be an application process involved for those and interviews, and it could drag the whole thing out
Right.
quite a bit. So maybe we could wait and see what happens on the 22nd and decide then.
Also, we pretty much put off and promised at the same time 2 candidates that were looking for OSAC. And in fairness to both of them, I think we should at least honor our commitment. That's my thoughts.
I love honoring commitments, but I guess I don't feel like this is that rigid a commitment, and that a couple of those maybe those candidates, knowing that ProStack might have an opening, would say, you know, I'm more interested in that. So I just, no need for resolution tonight, but be thinking about it.
So if
Because
we're
we'll
going
have
to
at
do
least
that.
one more meeting.
Right.
Okay, so if we're going to do that, could we contact all the candidates for the Open Space Advisory Committee and let them know where we stand with
Yeah,
this?
we'll
Instead
give-
of
You'll do that.
assuming that
Absolutely.
they will be
We'll
watching.
give them an update of where
Yeah.
the process is.
Right.
That the actual appointment won't be made
Right.
now until the first meeting in September.
Right, and
Exactly.
make it
Right.
clear that there's possible other openings
Right.
as well, and that they
Right.
should, keep their ear open.
Yep.
Right.
And we do a good job of notifying them if past candidates, if an opening comes up on another committee, to see if they're interested. So we'll do that as well.
anything else, Trustee Benjamin?
Nope, that's it.
So I attended a great event a week ago Saturday at the Town 9 Park, the dedication to what's now called the John Kuffner Park. It was, I think we had close to 100 people. It was great. I think the Kuffners outnumbered everybody else put together. And so, George, it was great to see your family, and what a great honor. And that's what makes this community great, actually. That's a great event. And we'll look forward to getting the permanent signs up. Is that next week? Couple of
I have to check because it's been ordered, but I'm not sure the delivery time.
Okay.
I'll put something in the digest.
I also saw that the bleachers are up at the
Yeah.
Green Park. That looks good.
Yeah.
I did get a call from Steve Smith, the president of the Mustangs, and for some reason he thought we had ordered 2 bleachers, but no, we only ordered 1. We're going to laid out this year, see if it's enough.
We should
It looks
plan
kinda
on
small,
ordering
right?
another one.
The
Yeah, I
proposed,
think it
pretty
looks kind of
small.
small by itself in that big field, but I think it's still 650.
The bleachers, it looks silly right now.
But it's because it's so small, I know, I know. So it's a visual thing, but it does just,
but during the discussion of the
I'm trying not to
donation
say I
and all
told
that,
you
we,
I know you did.
so we would get this one, and then we have in the proposed 2012 budget under the second.
I
We
think-
we could go for two more, and I think.
Go ahead, Sandy, say it.
No, Sandy,
Go
no,
ahead.
she's already telling me, I told her so. But so let's go through the
not like
first year.
Sandy.
Used.
If there are people standing next to it and it's packed, we'll order a second one next
And
year.
if there's
The
nobody
cooler-
at them, then we know that too.
The coolers
What's
are
that?
filling
If
this
there's
one
no
up,
one, then we know
right?
that too.
The cool thing is what?
The coolers,
Oh, the cool,
the
yeah.
lunch bags, coolers, drinks.
So anyway, it looks good, but it looks by itself isolated.
It looks dwarf.
On a more serious note, do we have any updates, I guess, for the audience? There was an armed robbery at Walgreens,
Yes.
and did they catch the... Do you know?
No, so Broomfield Police responded, the Sheriff's Office responded, but the Sheriff's Office role was just kind of vehicle control at the intersection.
Okay.
And then Broomfield Police is conducting
So
the
they're in charge.
investigation at Walgreens. But the suspect wasn't
Oh,
caught, so.
yeah, this was this afternoon, actually.
Yeah, it was this afternoon.
And it's unusual to have an armed robbery. That's for...
Yeah.
And it was the pharmacy,
Oh, the pharmacy.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
usually has to do with drugs.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Right.
so they,
Well, hopefully they'll catch him today and he's not running around.
yeah,
Yeah, they had all the businesses closed.
right. Starbucks was closed.
Yep,
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
if there's an update, I'll
Let us know. Okay.
send it out.
Yeah, that was very unfortunate. I was on my way there to get some prescriptions. And,
That's what you have Safeway
and
for.
they were closed.
Right, Trustee Williams?
So I also attended the Town 9 dedication park to John Kuffner Field, or actually it's Kuffner Field, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Chuckner Field.
And it was really, really interesting and nostalgic and important to kind of see our history right in front of us. That whole family, and all the different generations and what their contributions were and are, and I was actually quite moved by it, to be honest. So I enjoyed being a part of it. So
And we got quite a few emails from the family. Mark did. So
that's good.
Great.
I attended the Superior National Night Out just for a short period of time. I had another meeting before that for the library, for on the same page, the one book program that we're all reading, The Worst Hard Time. And looked like it was good attendance and lots of people there enjoying themselves. So the mayor was there. Say hi. I think, yeah, Sandy was there. I'm not sure if anyone else. I didn't. You were there? Okay, I missed you. Like I said, I was only there for maybe half hour. And I have, I think I mentioned an OSAC meeting this coming Wednesday in conjunction with Louisville's Open Space Advisory Committee as well. I think that'll be a good one.
and that's in Louisville.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good.
Oh, I don't know. It's
Is
here.
it in Louisville?
It's here. I guess it's here.
I thought it was here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. I thought they had to have all their meetings over there, but maybe that's just the city council.
No, that's just city council. Okay. As well as, I think, the library board of trustees, but not their advisory committees. I also have a couple of Dr. Cog meetings next Wednesday, and then also a workshop, a full-day training workshop to incorporate public health and environmental issues into the planning process for the MetroVision. And I also attended a meeting a week ago, or no, it was 2 weeks ago, with CDOT, the director of CDOT, and City of Golden, Boulder County, and the Jefferson County and the Jefferson Parkway Toll Road Authority. I think the meeting was definitely a little bit on the contentious side, obviously, for obvious reasons. Nobody particularly agreed on any particular one issue or any kind of compromise at all.
Sounds like our government.
CDOT has asked that Superior and Golden both work with the Jefferson Toll Road, the JPPHA is what they're called, separately to kind of work out our differences and see where we go with that. So we'll probably be reaching out on both sides soon here and discussing what kind of common ground we could possibly meet. I don't know what that'll be, but it's worth a try. So I don't know if we'll do that with our entire board and their entire board, or just a few members. I don't know. I think it'd be more fun with the entire board.
Sure.
But, you know.
Do we outnumber them, or?
Maybe.
Probably it would
Probably
be close.
I think it'd be more interesting, you know, board to board. That's my opinion. And I think that CDOT's main important goal is, their end result is they want to see Golden drop their application for the right-of-way on Rocky Flats so that the toll road can move forward. So that was said in the meeting probably half a dozen times, a dozen times.
I was going to say it does.
Wasn't a secret, but that was their end goal. So just so we all know
Recurring message.
where they stand.
Thank you, Trustee Skumac.
I think the only thing since the last meeting I was at was held one coffee buzz. The one committee that I'm assigned to that was supposed to have a meeting canceled that meeting, and the coffee buzz and follow up came up with someone who's interested in having us have a they call it a crime notification system, where we would set up. They would like it to be push. They would like to be opt out of the list, and those are all things that are debatable. But it's something I'm happy to talk with you about potentially, Matt. So.
Thank you. Trustee Shirelli?
Well, again, I echo the compliments to the Sheriff's Department and also the Fire Department for the efforts at the night out. That was great. My grandkids loved it. They loved the fire hose spraying, the helicopter, the inflatables, and the face painting. We have, for 3 days afterwards, had a Spider-Man and a Batman running around. So pretty neat. Really good. On the Rocky Flats Stewardship Council, well, we haven't met, but on the Rocky Flats issue, the comment period ended on the proposed change to the CAD rod. North Glen, Westminster, Broomfield, and Women's Creek Authority all submitted comments pretty much against the proposed changes to the CAD rod, as well as a couple of individuals submitted comments. And I wished, unfortunately, there was no meeting period for the Stewardship Council in this period of release and closure of the comments on this, and so we, as a Stewardship Council, we didn't act on this thing. The governments of Broomfield, North Glen, Thornton, and I can't read my note whether there's a fourth one or not, sent a letter to all of our congressional delegation as well, asking them to intervene on opposing these changes to the CAD rod. Essentially, in summary, the comments were similar to what Sandy had mentioned in her comments on the meeting, and I believe you made public comment as well, that this was the beginning of possibly opening a slippery slope of changing what everybody was hoping would be a fairly controlled process of managing that remedy and having comments on any proposed changes. So we'll see where it goes.
So, Joe, who does vote on it? Who votes to implement it or deny it?
Well, it's a DOE CD, Colorado CDPHE decision. So I don't know that they vote, but they listen to the comments and then they make a decision, I think, is the next step.
The federal DOE or the DOE site managers?
Well, I don't think the site managers do anything without the
Okay.
federal
Yeah,
government.
because we certainly know how they
Especially
feel.
the DOE I know doesn't do anything without Washington
Okay.
being on board.
And that last meeting I was at, the CDPHE or whatever, and DOE, both of the reps were there, and they agreed together in this new proposal and how they were going to remedy some of the issues in the hot zone.
I don't know that they could have agreed
Well, they
at
were
that point, but
not formally, but they informally were saying, this isn't an issue. This is what we're doing anyway, and this is what we approved that we were doing.
well,
anyway.
I think that goes. I unfortunately was out of town for that meeting, and I'm really sorry I missed that because what I understood was coming was this change. I understood this change was coming as a result of the 3-foot dig limit in the operable unit was not intended in DOE's mind to impact normal operations that were not remedy related, for maintenance and that sort of thing. But the way the management agreement and the decision documents were written, it essentially, arguably, and Broomfield did argue this when they were proposing the dam breach, did arguably prevent them from removing the dam that they wanted to remove, because even though that dam was not remedy related, it still amounted to digging more than 3 feet. So that was what they were trying to change, but they, based upon the comments I've read and so forth, they've gone a little further than that as well in loosening up the controls
Right.
and so that is
So-
of some concern.
So how does someone stop this process of the DOE and Colorado Department of Health and Public Environment making these decisions without, okay, they're getting public input, but there is no governing body that is overseeing this and saying, well, wait a minute, no, you can't.
Well, I think they're following, this is not my area of expertise, but my guess would be if they don't follow the administrative processes required by the law, the federal law and Colorado's law, then your remedy's courts. And so that's all I can say. And I think, I'm guessing it's similar to the EA process. If you have a process that you follow, your decision doesn't necessarily have to be what people like if you follow the process. But I don't know,
And I agree with you, and I think what their decision that they're trying to make here is that the process is so vague, and they want to clear it up, clarify it, and make it a little more specific in how their actual practices are. I mean, I'm assuming they can't just change that. I mean, it's written the way it's written for a reason, and they
can change, any change they make, they have to follow the process for changing it. So, and I think that's what they're trying to do.
Well, what worries me is they're saying that this is our practice, we're already
Well,
doing.
you see, that's why this change came about. I think DOE never intended for the remedy, the CAD rod and the RFMA to impact what they had to do on the site in order to do their normal activities, and that were not related to the remedy itself. So they had been doing things like that, and now they're trying to, and I think CDPHE and
Legally formulated.
and I think they never did anything without CDPHE knowing about it, but,
That is a huge concern, because they were
well, it's not so much
approving-
I guess I don't distrust what the people are trying to do. I mean, I don't think CDPHE would allow things that were unhealthy to go on knowingly, but I think they both maybe realized, whoops, the language is not as good as not where we thought we were on language to be doing what we were doing. That's my take on it.
Can we take some of this discussion to the executive session? I think or
I'm good.
If I could put two short things forth. One, I agree with Deb, this relationship between DOE, site supervisors, and CDPHE seems a bit cozy. And perhaps it's not. I don't want to impugn anything. But from our perspective, where we're very concerned about plutonium contamination, we've got to be concerned about arm's length. And two, there are some communities that are really on top of this issue in terms of, I think, we'll vet these public comments and make sure the process is followed. Having said all that, I do believe that since this issue in the broad sense is right front and center for us, that I would really like our own attorneys on this issue to be following this particular one, because I do think there is a chance of that slippery slope thing happening, and where it does affect eventually the right-of-way. One, it could directly lead to contamination of the right-of-way. If we're digging below 3 feet on a repair project, and we've got a pile of dirt, and the wind picks up like it does here randomly, we've got potential contamination problems of water, of land, of air, et cetera, et cetera. So, to me, it isn't a discrete problem. It is a broad problem, and we need to be on top of it.
We can have a discussion with David Abelson. He's the executive director for the Stewardship Council.
Right.
He'll have a good grasp on the process and how,
Well, I think what
the decision.
what
point.
Trustee Pennington's suggesting is perhaps worthwhile for our town, that we have our town attorney monitor what's going on in this process, continuing, because David Abelson is kind of a neutral observer on this, and I don't think he'd really guide us.
Well, not so much the guidance, but just the background information.
But as far as the cozy relationship of two things, the parties have been working together for years on the remedy, so a relationship develops. However, Colorado's CDPHE has a stronger concern than Rocky Flats about how this is, how the Rocky Flats Central Unit is continued to be monitored. They care about, I don't think they would lose track of what their role is for the Colorado citizens, but again, people, when they work together a lot, that's something that it does happen. And they do work together a lot.
Thank you. Trustee Hanson?
Boy, that's a tough report segment to follow.
Well, considering I don't know what I'm talking about, it's even,
Sounds pretty good to me.
it shouldn't daunt you at all.
I attended a ProStack meeting last week, a short ProStack meeting. We really prepared for a community forum. We did Greenplay did another presentation to original town and Sagamore residents showing a more defined layout of potential layout of Town 9 Park. And it's really nice, and I believe we're going to see that on the 22nd. They identified some of the things that would go into Town 9 Park, but really good, had some good feedback and good discussion from the residents that showed up. As Trustee Pennington mentioned, I did participate in the anti-bullying PSA with Young Ambassadors of America, which is a local organization, and Brandon Light of Steel Rock Films, who is our producer here that does our video, did the whole project. He donated his time Evidently, it was in excess of $1,000 worth of time that he put into this project, and it turned out really well. The HOA, Rock Creek HOA, was gracious enough to allow it to be played during the movie night. But this project that Young Ambassador has taken on has really grown, taken on a life of its own. State Senator Pat Stedman is involved, and I believe Michael Bennett is involved in this. So this anti-bullying campaign is really taking on some legs. So it's a good, well-done job. Last weekend, we took our local Cub Scout pack and several parents on the last summertime camp out. We had about 60 people out there, and we took everybody out on a hike on Saturday. And just so happens that Boulder County Open Space was out there doing their Junior Ranger program. So we were able to get our kids involved. They went to several stations and interacted with firemen and sheriffs and got to see the dogs and the trucks and all the equipment they use. They got to participate in an obstacle course and see a CSI crime scene. And then they all became Junior Rangers. So it was a big thanks to Boulder County Open Space.
On which trail?
We were out at Camp Patia,
Oh, yeah.
and it was a trail just behind the camp there.
Is that on Peak to Peak Highway? Or?
Go up Baseline to Flagstaff.
Oh,
So anyways, a lot of fun. We didn't expect that, and the kids had a really good time. And that's it.
Town manager?
A couple things. You will be receiving probably tomorrow your supplemental budget books for the 2012 budget.
Do you have that online?
I don't want it online.
Digital copy?
You'll crash.
For moi?
I will check with Paul,
That would be great.
but you'll get those tomorrow, and then
Home
we have
delivered?
our first.
Home? Or in?
Yeah, at home.
okay.
We have, I believe, our first finance committee meeting scheduled for August 29th. So that is started. Numbers for the library book drop for July were 345 books.
Wow.
So that's a pretty decent amount. And then some DVDs and CDs on top of that. So see, once school starts, we'll just continue to keep track of accounts.
You going to keep it in the newsletter then? drop?
Yeah, we'll run it occasionally. Yeah, maybe not every newsletter each month, but for the first
Maybe
couple.
For the first few
Yeah.
months, so people will have I mean,
Yeah, and then
just get the word out a little bit more.
maybe every other month or once a quarter or something like that, just as a reminder after that. And
How about
Yeah.
keeping it on the sign outside?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do that too. Let's see, we've been working with the HOA on a couple items. One is holiday lighting, about doing something jointly this year.
Okay.
So I'll give you more information once we have that. And then we talked to them a little bit about maybe some joint efforts on events next year. So
That'd be good.
we're working through some of the details on that.
And that would be open to the entire town?
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they already are.
Yeah,
So,
they are.
Well, yeah. Just clarifying.
Coordination on some different things that we can help them with, and so. And then let's see. The last thing I had was we've had some very preliminary discussions with Taco Bell about the Parks and Recreation site. I'm not sure if they're really interested in that site or not, but just wanted to give you a heads up. We've at least been discussing with them.
Why not? Why are they,
Why not what?
why not interested?
Oh, I don't know yet.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I've got some initial response from them saying, but it might be too small, and
Where's that site again?
right across the street here.
Oh, this right here.
The Parks and Recreation building there.
That's a mobile facility.
Yeah, that was Richmond Homes. I
Yeah, it was a
think.
mortgage
Yeah,
office.
it was a mortgage
That's right,
office,
that's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Closed our mortgage.
That's where we
And then
got our-
Districts 2 and 3 got it from the developer, and then when we took over the districts, we got it.
So they
That'd
would
be pretty
develop,
tight. There's
It is
a
tight.
drive-through. There's no way there's.
Yeah, it is. So-
they would develop their own building? Or they would use the existing?
No,
building?
they would,
No,
yeah,
no, build their own.
They would build their own?
yeah.
Right. And
We can
where-
always
what
have
would happen
takeout
to
though.
Parks
That's
and
pretty
Rec?
close.
We would have to move them into a temporary building over on the land next to us. So, if anything comes of it, I'll let you know. And then we continue to work with Explore on the town center
Good.
idea.
When do we expect to hear back from them?
I'm hoping sometime in August, but
Oh, yeah?
this month or early next month, but we're working through some of the details. Kindred is working on a development agreement, and so,
Okay.
but it's progressing.
Good.
And do they have funds? Are they going
Oh,
to
yeah.
have funds?
Yeah, yeah.
They
I
really
mean,
do.
it appears to me that they do.
No, these guys are.
And that's what they're doing right now, is securing the financing. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Town attorney,
Nothing, thank you.
Phyllis? Okay. Public comment on consent agenda and non-agenda items.
George Kuffner of 7520 West Colquitt. I go by the park, Town 9 and Colquitt Park, constantly on the weekends. And our Parks and Rec department, I mean, they work their tails off to try to keep it green. But there are so many people on that top end. And I mean, you got 40 people playing on it. You got 40 people waiting to get on it. And if you go up there, there's, I mean, and they're not, they don't care if they tear a big hole in it or big brown spots. They play on top of it. They don't care. Instead of moving the field, they're, you know, a little courtesy for us, money-wise, and even looking good, they just hammer it. And I think that you guys need to maybe consider scheduling. That way, when they do damage it, we have some of their money. And a good example is was it last week when we had the rains late in the afternoons, the good rains, thunder and lightning. There was like 40 guys out there playing, and the rains came, and it rained pretty hard, you know, and they go right back out there and start making mud holes. And instead of moving down, you know what I'm saying? So they set their cones out. One group of 40 moves off, and then a group of 40 moves on. They, you know what I'm saying? So if you guys could think about, I mean, I realize maybe you put a number on how many people could be on it before they got to pay and schedule it, or whatever, because our parks department, I mean, they work on it, but if you went up there tonight, you say, well, the sprinkler's not working there. Well, the sprinkler's working fine. It's just that it's getting beat to death. So if you guys would think about that. I mean, I realized that when we made it, we was just going to be open. But with that many people coming on and off on the weekends, there ain't nobody can get on from town or, you know, come up and use the backstop or nothing. So maybe we could do something as a board, make them schedule it.
What are they playing?
Frisbee.
Ultimate Frisbee.
Pardon?
Ultimate Frisbee.
Like, well, I don't know. 40 people.
Yeah, they're running all over the place.
Yeah, just but pretty much it's Frisbee. Once in a while I see soccer, but most of the time it's just that Frisbee. It's kind of like, I mean, for that many people and everybody running around, it's funny that spot always right there and then that spot, you know, I mean, it's, if I had the whole field, you'd think they'd use the whole field, but they don't. They use that spot.
Trustees
So if
comments?
you guys could,
So I know we don't want to engage or anything.
That's
One thing
okay.
I did want to mention was, and I know we're talking the whole Town 9 and how it's going to be done is in a different process, but I did want to say one thing is that I don't know if the town rec department uses that crumb rubber stuff that you can put in fields to make it not break the grass where it grows.
Huh.
So it's a just right size sort of thing. They use it on like the professional football fields that are grass and that sort of thing.
Oh, right.
It's not too expensive, and it's small balls that keep it from breaking the stems.
anything would work. Thanks.
Thank you,
Trustee
Jim.
Hanson?
There was a discussion, and I think Chairman Payne is going to talk about that, but there was a discussion at the last ProStack meeting about the Ultimate Frisbee groups coming in and spending all day out there and not allowing some of the local youth teams to practice and play out there. So the discussion was, should we start charging non-residents to use the field? Should we schedule it? Should we start off with just having a sign out there to requesting people to be courteous of other people's time? Jim, did you want to add on to that a little bit more?
Jim Payne, 2475 Clayton Circle, and Chair of ProStack. Yeah, it was a lively discussion at the last ProStack meeting, and we've become aware of at least one sort of interaction between the group, the Ultimate Frisbee group, and some residents were using it for practice. So we're going to work with staff, and our tendency right now is that since we're doing things to the park, we don't think it's time to address ultimate issues about how much should be scheduled, how much should be programmed, because that's part of the ongoing discussion of the development of the park. But we do think, and we did recommend to staff that we look at a way to address specifically that particular usage, because it's really taken over the park and it's creating quite a lot of damage. So you all know how we got there. We didn't want it, residents didn't want it scheduled, programmed. Because it's not programmed, it's not scheduled, which has created a vacuum where groups come in, pay nothing, and can virtually take it over. So we're looking at easy ways right now to at least break that up or prevent it or have discussions with them and try to work something out.
I think at the very least, we need to have some kind of time limitation.
Yeah.
I mean,
Martin
a
talked
group
about-
can't take over the whole park for like 5-6 hours and have everybody else waiting. That's not right.
It just gets hard for individuals to enforce that.
Right,
If
so we
somebody's
need to have-
recalcitrant about it.
You know, like if you go to the tennis courts, they say, there's some kind of guidance as to how much time you can spend.
It's exactly what I'm familiar with, but I still think that could be hard. That could lead to conflict.
The discussion was perhaps we start off real nice at first and put a sign out there that says,
Right.
please be courteous of other people's time. If you've been out here for a couple hours and another group wants to use it,
Yeah,
let them
it
use it, to progressing to possibly requiring you to reserve the field if you want it. Anyone from outside the community could have maybe 2 days ahead of time, but local groups would have at least 3 days ahead of time if they wanted to reserve it. So they, in a sense, would get priority on it.
Yeah, but before we got to that stage, because that gets into a whole big discussion about programming and scheduling of that field and potentially other parts of the park, what we did suggest was moving right away with some sort of a 2-hour limit.
Yeah,
And
that's
we could
unreasonable.
enforce it at will, and that would essentially shut that down. And if we can have discussions with them if there's some other way to come up with a mutually beneficial solution for that. It's nice to see the park used, but it's clearly not what the park is intended to be used for even now. So a 2-hour limit would address that.
That sounds very reasonable. Yeah, Trustee Skumas?
This can't be a unique problem. I'm guessing that there are fields for towns all around here that have to deal with this problem. It seems like a few calls would be useful to find a solution.
Well, again, we agreed not to program it, so that created a vacuum.
I'm not
So
encouraging the
most-
programming.
most-
To me,
No,
it's to
I-
deal with the signage issue or
There
the
aren't, I don't think there are a lot of fields, quite frankly, that
sign up.
That aren't
have just...
programmed.
That are
Oh,
wide
right.
open, right?
There are very few.
Wasn't Martin going to approach the director or whatever of the ultimate group and see if there was something he could just verbally...
Right,
work out with
or
them?
ProStack Night, or somehow
Yeah.
have a nice
Conversation.
conversation and see
Yeah.
what we can do.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments since you guys are the only two people in the audience? Unless we can get the assistant town manager to come up and say a few words. All right, we have no presentations. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Approval of the minutes of the July 25th, 2011 Board of Trustees meeting. 7B, approval of a liquor license renewal for Rock Creek Wine and Spirits. And 7C, final approval of an ordinance amending Chapter 16, Article 2 of the Superior Municipal Code by the addition of a new Section 6-2-100 governing special events and permits. Trustee Skumas?
I just wanted to congratulate that, I know that the last one, C, was part of a long process at the clerks in the state where to put that together, and that was a really smart and sensible process, and this makes a lot more sense than the old one. So it is.
Are you also making a motion to approve?
Yes.
Trustee Sorelli seconded. All in favor? Thank you. And that brings to end to our meeting, and make a motion to go into executive session. Trustee Hanson? Second by Trustee Williams. All in favor?
You gavel?
The gavel, yes. Our meeting's over.
That's a serious gavel. Gavel. Yeah.
So,
Do we need Kendra to read that thing?
Kendra to read something, or?
Yeah, are we?
I've got the tape on, so
Okay.
are we going into legal?